Now, so what we need to be able to do is find the slope when we're given the equation of the line. And there's three different things that we want to look at. So the first is when the line is in the form, lines in the form y equals mx plus c. And that's super easy because it's just the slope is equal to the x coefficient. So let's look at an example of that. If I have these lines, y equals 3x minus 4, y equals a half x plus 3, y equals minus 2x over 3 minus 14. It's easy to write down the slopes of each of those lines. It's just the number that is multiplying the x. So here the slope is 3. Here the slope is a half. And here the slope is, even though the x is on top next to it, minus 2 over 3. So just to get used to the different formats that can come up in, the slope is minus 2/3. Okay, so those are easy, but that's not the only way that we write our lines, as we know. We might have our lines in the form something times x plus something times y plus something all equal to 0. So this was how we learned to write our equations of the line. Everything on one side all equal to 0. Now, we could, of course, change around our line so that it looked that we have the y on its own on one side and everything else on the other side, but we don't have to do that. We have a shortcut. The slope will be the x and the y coefficients divided and change the sign. So I say minus a over b. So the x coefficient over the y coefficient and change the sign. Let's look at examples of those. So if I have lines like 3x plus 2y minus 4 equal to 0, or 2x minus 5y plus 1 equal to 0, or 5x plus y minus 18 equal to 0. Then what we need to do to write down the slopes of each of these, the slope of this one, I said, will be the x coefficient over the y coefficient, 3 over 2, and change the sign, minus 3 over 2. This one, the slope, will be the x coefficient over the y coefficient. Don't forget we've got a minus in there as well. So 2 over minus 5 and change the sign, 2 over 5. So don't forget to change the sign. And this one, the slope will be 5 over 1, 5 over 1, and change the sign. And that is just minus 5. So that's how we do those. So not too hard, but you do need to remember this as if it's a formula and it is not in the log tables. So we need to learn it. No, I think you should learn all the formulas regardless of if they're in the log tables. Okay, final bit then. What about if it's neither? Lines in neither form. Well, then you need to move things around. So move terms around to get it in the form you want, in your preferred form. Let's look at an example. So if we had something like 3x plus 7 equals minus 2y, or if we had 5y is equal to 17 minus x, or if we had 13 is equal to x plus y. So then how do we find the slopes in these cases? Because they're not in the form y equals mx plus c, y on its own, everything else on the other side, and they're not in the form everything on one side equal to 0. So we need it in one of these two forms in order to be able to find the slope. So we have to do that. Well, in this case, it will be quite easy to just bring my minus 2y over, and when you change sides, you change signs. So these are the same. I've just moved things around. I've added 2y to both sides. And now I can say that my slope is the x coefficient over the y coefficient and change the sign, minus 3 over 2. What about this one? Well, this one is really, really near to y equals mx plus c. So you can bring everything to one side, and if you want to just keep doing that, that's easy. Or I could divide across by 5. I could divide everything by 5. Why would I do that? Because I'll get y, 5y divided by 5 is y, equals 17 over 5 minus x over 5. Or that's the same as y equals minus 1 over 5 times x minus a fifth x plus 17 over 5. And now this is in the form y equals mx plus c, so we can say that the slope is the x coefficient. It is minus a fifth. So that's another way of doing it. To be honest, I think it's easier to get it in the form ax plus by plus c equal to 0, because you only get a fraction on the last step, but you can choose whichever way you prefer. So finally this one, it's actually really near to what I want. If I bring the 13 over here, if it's equal to 0 on this side, it's equal to 0 on this side. So that means the slope is the x coefficient 1 over the y coefficient 1 and change the sign. So my slope is minus 1 in this case. Okay, so that is how we change our lines around to find the slopes. So you can change it to either of these formats. It doesn't matter. Either one is okay. And once you have it in this form, everything on one side equal to 0, then the x coefficient over the y coefficient and change the sign. Or if you have y on its own equal to everything else, then it's just the number in front of x. Right, I'm going to ask you to do some practice now with lines and slopes for the rest of the time for maths today. Thank you.